Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the At The Pylon podcast. Alongside Chandler Betts, my name is Nick Antonakas. Chandler, how you doing?
UMass football has a better record than the Patriots, putting it out there.
I know you've been waiting to say that for weeks
I
now.
have been. It's the first time, literally, ever, that can be said. So
waiting for the stars to align, and they have aligned, sadly, for Patriots fans out there. But UMass, you have something to cheer about. There you go.
Yeah, 3 wins. We're so up.
Regardless, this is the Patriots bye week, so on the good side, we don't have to watch any more Patriots football this weekend and watch them probably lose at the rate that they've been going. But going throughout the rest of the season, the Pats still have a lot of action ahead of them. Chandler and I are going to take a full look at the rest of the Patriots season. But before we do that, we're going to kind of take a step back and recap the Patriots season that they've gone through so far. Chandler, I titled this originally a 3-phase season, but in going through it, I kind of determined that there was really 4 phases of this year. So we'll kind of go phase by phase. Let's start out with phase 1, which was the promising phase. The Patriots opened their season against the defending NFC champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. They played a very competitive game, to say the least. They unfortunately lost by a score of 25-20. But coming out of that game, I was very positive. We'll get into that after we go through what the whole phase is. But after that, they face off against the Dolphins, a last-second effort to try and get the first down to possibly score a game-winning touchdown where Jones throws to Cole Strange, and Cole Strange runs right up to the first down marker. Unfortunately, he was marked just short. That's where the game would end. Another heartbreaking loss for New England. It was 24-17. And after that, they get their first win of the year against the New York Jets. Not too much dynamic action on the offensive side of the ball, but the Patriots, regardless, still get a win 15-10. At this point in the year, they were 1-2, I should say. So obviously not the best start on paper, but from our perspective, at least, we saw some promise.
Yeah, looking at these games, the 2 losses, at least again on paper, looked like good losses. If you harken back to what I was saying, this was back when the standard I thought was a little higher, and by little I mean a lot higher. I still saw a lot of flaws in this team, as you see in any team that ends up being 2-7, 2 and whatever. This team stinks. The Philadelphia game should have been a lot farther than it was, but keeping it at 5 is still very impressive against the reigning NFC champions. The Miami game, I feel like a broken record every week. We know how much I love this Miami team, how strong I think that they are. Their wins or lack thereof against actually good football teams is another conversation for a Dolphins podcast, not us. But keeping that game close, the fan in me tells me that Cole Strange did in fact get that first down. They didn't call it as such. That game actually was pretty close. I couldn't have any real qualms after that one. But 0-2 against 2 good teams, no blowouts, that's fine. The Jets game, it was a win, but it felt worse than both of the games before. It felt like this was really the point where we weren't going to be able to score 20 points in a game, and we have more or less shown that. So, yes, it's a promising start relative to everything else we've done this year. If we had gone from that Jets game and had that statement win like I had been talking about, maybe we wouldn't be sitting in the situation in which we are.
Yeah, Chandler, you make some great points there. And kind of bringing myself back to this time of the Patriots season was
back when you thought that we could make the AFC Championship.
It was a bit of a journey for me. I can't lie, because my one takeaway from these first 3 games, now that you kind of gave your piece, I've realized that it was that I had faith in the team and what they were preaching to us. After that Eagles game, I quote to it a couple times throughout our previous episodes of the podcast. Matthew Judon explicitly said after the game, he's like, we have this figured out. We know the small things we need to fix in order to go on a run and get some wins throughout this season. And at the time, I was completely in support of that. Based off the way that the Philadelphia game went, I was extremely impressed. And although I thought that the Patriots had a chance to possibly get an upset in that game and start off their season on a huge high note, when they lost, it was probably the prettiest loss I could have imagined in terms of how things went, other than obviously falling far behind in the first half. Same thing for the Miami game, except a little bit less grace to New England's side of things. Miami in that case was more of a beatable opponent, I'd say, than against Philadelphia. But regardless, we still had a very, I guess, promising game on that front. One thing to take away was, of course, the Eagles and Dolphins were both probably not in the full swing that they are now. So that's one thing to consider. But regardless, coming out of those two games, there was some promise, and the back coming from the Patriots locker room and Bill Belichick himself was believable from a Patriots Nation perspective. Now, that game against the Jets, Chandler, you make a good point. Surprisingly, it being our first win, it's where kind of the drop off begins to happen in terms of faith in the team. Like you said, and we'll get into it certainly with this next phase coming up, statement games are important. And this game is really a point of the season. Although there was still some promise for New England, it was reaching a point on the schedule where we were like, okay, this is the time of year where you need to define yourself and prove yourself from this point on that you're a competitive team in the market. A 15-10 win is a win, sure, but it's not the type of win you need to assert yourself and dominance. And that perfectly transitions into their next phase of the season, which I like to call the fall off. That game against Dallas, I plugged it as the biggest game of the season for New England at the time. That certainly didn't turn out well for us as we lost that game by a score of 38-3, one of the worst losses that we've seen of the season. Now, things did not get better for New England as they got blown out at home against the New Orleans Saints the next week, 34-0. And finally, they traveled to Las Vegas. At this point of the season, you and I were both very much on the hands off. We're out on this team.
Yep.
But things did not get better as they lost to Las Vegas, led by Brian Hoyer at one point, 21-17, making Josh McDaniels look good just weeks before he would get canned, despite having a 6-year lucrative contract. I don't know the exact numbers, but
yeah.
At this point of the year, Chandler, how are you feeling, I guess, watching this disaster unfold in front of you?
Is it bad that the first word that came to mind was validated? Because I've been saying for the first 3 weeks during the promising start, quote unquote, there are some things that paper tells, but nothing can get past the eye test. The good old eye test tells you everything you need to know. And gosh, we certainly didn't pass it. And God, we definitely didn't pass it the next 3 weeks. This was both the worst and the second worst losses in Bill Belichick's Patriot tenure, being 35 and 34 points back to back, one of which being at home against a frankly not very good Saints team, was absolutely just a crushing blow. And then going with essentially the B team of all the players that we said we hated when they played for the Patriots, they go to the Raiders, to a coach who has proven himself to be very, very bad at coaching football as a head coach, and to still lose that game, there was nothing left. And I remember I think it was around week 3 when I was saying we can't be optimistic about this team right now. And this is around the time when you were saying that we were an AFC Championship team. I don't mean to keep harping, but I
Thanks,
say
bro. Thanks for keep bringing that up.
You're welcome. You're welcome. But I say that in service to say that my preseason prediction, and it was still the same at the time. Do you remember what the actual record was?
5-12, right?
5-12. Yep. And
I can say it right now because you've said it so many times.
Even that seeming optimistic, but at this point, yeah, after week 6, before the next phase, I was thinking, wow, 5-12 would be lovely right now. That would be a big win at this point in the season.
Yeah, and you're definitely right, Chandler. 2 of the worst losses in Bill Belichick's career are enough to sum up this phase. But like you said, as you were so much validated by this performance by the Patriots, this was kind of the point where I kind of shut my mouth and was like, all right, it's time to stop, like, I guess, calling out for the Pats to rise up, because they kind of just put the stake through my heart and eliminated that possibility from being sort of a thing. The game against the Cowboys, horrible. We saw some of Mac Jones's worst throws of his entire career. I think ever since that game against Dallas, he has not been the same. That was kind of the first big fracture in the mental game for Mac Jones. Obviously things did not get better against the Saints the next week. And it just gets worse and worse after week. Although on the score sheet, it got better against the Raiders, it still wasn't anything promising for Mac Jones. We saw Zappy come in at points throughout those 3 games. We saw Malik Cunningham come in through points throughout those 3 games. Mac Jones was definitely being mentally tested at this time, and it shows in the win-loss record because we went 0-3. And at this point in the year, we were 1-5 going into this next phase of the season, which is kind of our third mini phase. The tease against the Buffalo Bills. The Patriots somehow upset against the Buffalo Bills, get a win 29-25. Since this game, we've kind of seen that the Buffalo Bills are more frauds than we are saviors. But regardless, it felt good to get this win. And I think, I wouldn't say they had us fooled, but they had us questioning, I guess, their previous performances after this game. Wouldn't you say, Chandler?
Yeah, my first thought was very much so, do the Bills stink rather than are we good? And I don't know if the Bills stink. They really, I have mixed opinions on them scapegoating Ken Dorsey and firing him this past week. As much as I do love Joe Brady, he was the offensive coordinator for, look at this round circle talk here. He was the offensive coordinator for Joe Burrow and that LSU team. That was the best college football team of all time, in my opinion. And of course, Joe Burrow now has a fractured hand and he is out for the season. And if the Patriots were even decent at football, we would have a pretty good chance at making the playoffs now because the Bengals.
Thanks for bringing that up.
You're welcome. Had to. So all of that to say, this Bills team is very questionable. They lost their last game because they had 12 men on the field for a special teams play for the game-winning field goal. I think they'll figure it out. I think that good teams tend to figure it out. Josh Allen maybe isn't as good as we say he is. But having said that, a win against the Bills team is just impressive. Now, I've done a little bit more research into it. This Bills offense is the most predictable in the NFL, a lot of people say, because when they get into certain formations, they call 2, maybe 3 plays. So if there's anybody to figure out more predictable offenses, it's Bill Belichick. So this game should have been a win that we saw coming in a way, but having a win against a Bills team that frankly has been very good over the past 5 years is always impressive.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that, Chandler. And I will say, although we did get this win, things have materialized a little bit more since and because of the Bills' recent performance.
Oh, and Mac Jones led us on a 2-minute drive.
He did.
Let's not forget that.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, so sorry.
Mac had some recovery in terms of establishing himself as this team's quarterback in this game.
Led us on a 2-minute drive. He had a 68-yard dump off, which was the entire drive basically. But he had some good passes. I'm not taking credit away from him.
And the most important part was after these first, or I guess the previous 3 weeks to this game against Buffalo, Mac was mentally fractured.
Yep.
And being able to go in a circumstance of a game against a rival team at home, 2 minutes left, you got to just drive your team down the field. And he was able to cash in and not choke. And he was able to throw that touchdown to, surprisingly, Mike Gesicki.
Yeah.
Who this past week was the intended target for that horrible pass in the red zone against the Colts. But we'll get into that.
We'll get to that one.
It's just, to me, they didn't have me fully back on board, but you and I were both on the ship of, if they beat Miami this next week,
yes,
this is a totally different assessment. And I still stand by that because
the
fact of the matter is, they were, starting to make that curve in terms of possibly banging a U-turn on their season that was going in such a dramatically bad fashion. But regardless, as we'll see in this final phase, that unfortunately did not happen after this glorious game against the Bills. And as much as, I appreciate a good screw the Bills and beat the Bills, we quickly realized after this that the Armageddon of the Patriots season was incoming. And that's our 4th phase, the Armageddon phase. That starts off with their not biggest game of the season against the Miami Dolphins. Clearly that wasn't a jinx because we lost anyway by a score of 31-17. On paper, it looks worse than the actual game was. At least I feel the Patriots had some chances to kind of assert themselves back in that game. Obviously, a very late touchdown to Tyreek Hill is what ended up putting the Dolphins up by so much. Before that, it was a 1-score game. But regardless, still a pivotal loss on the road. After that, things get worse. Sam Howell comes into town and cooks us. The Washington Commanders get a win by a score of 20-17. This is when the whole Bill Belichick trade rumors started up.
Yep.
The whole Mac Jones mentality started to rise up because as these games went on, Mac got progressively worse and worse. And it was less about the system around him, which it was obviously his biggest flaw earlier in the season, and more just the mental strain he was under, whether it was from the coaching staff, analysts, fans, whatever. It was just clear that he was starting to break. And the culmination of that happened this past Sunday on the Robert Kraft and I guess Jonathan Kraft's titled Super Bowl for the season, despite being 2-7 going into the contest against the Colts in Germany. Patriots lost in terrible fashion, only putting up 6 points, 10-6 on the, I guess, grand international stage that was Frankfurt. So, and obviously we saw Max probably one of his worst performances of the season, if you don't count the, I guess, stupid throws he was making against the Cowboys. But regardless, this is Armageddon, Chandler, and that's where we stand now. Now a record of 2-8 going into our bye, which we are currently in. What did you kind of take away from these last 3 weeks that spiraled out pretty fast considering a somewhat close game against the Dolphins?
Yeah, this is the point of the season where we realize that Mac Jones is no longer the future quarterback of this team. In the 3 games, Mac Jones did not rest in peace. Yeah, may he rest in peace. May his confidence rest in peace, because we've killed this man. It's like the part of the movie where, or the part of we both love WWE. It's like when the good guy is getting beat up and you're like, he has to come back, right? Right? And then he doesn't. And everything sucks and the good guy dies, and maybe there's a sequel. The sequel maybe is named Drake May. We'll talk about that later. But in this span, Mac Jones never threw for more than 220 yards. Threw for under 200 yards twice of those 3 games. It simply is not an NFL quarterback at this stage of his career at this point. And that sucks to say, because there very much so is an NFL quarterback in there. If you have a good situation around him, he's shown that he can do it. But this is not the situation. This is not the mentality. This is not the player. These 3 games really are categorized. The defense wasn't horrible in these 3 games. The defense was actually very good last week. But frankly, we don't have a quarterback. We don't have an offense, but that starts with the quarterback.
Yeah, and coming from someone who has been on the Mac Jones train all year long, it's especially sad to see and obviously I said this the majority of my piece following last week's game in our Monday post-game reaction episode. If you haven't already seen it, go check it out. But yeah, it was just sad, I guess, is the only word I have to describe it, watching Mac Jones just crumble over the year, because in a lot of circumstances, besides his stats, besides, I guess, the system he had around him, besides the trust that the coaches lacked, besides the talent around him in the offense, the horrible play from the offensive line, the close games that he was keeping the team in at points and even won us 1 or 2 at some points. I guess 1, because that game against the Jets, he did not win us. And we only have 2 wins. That's crazy to say as a Patriots fan. But regardless, I really saw the promise in there, and I guess praise myself for being someone who held out for the longest on Mac. And part of me, I guess, still holds on to that faith a little bit. But as more time goes on, the less likely it becomes, Chandler, like you said, that he'll be our quarterback next year. But the question surrounding this year and the rest of this season still looms. We'll get into that in a little bit, but let's go throughout a whole preview for the rest of the year, Chandler, starting off with, I guess, some housekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
Following last week's episode, Jack Jones was obviously cut from the team. He ended up going to the Las Vegas Raiders.
Because of course he did, because every Patriots player goes there.
It was not
hopefully it's a better time than Chandler Jones did.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I would at least argue, and I want to hear your take on this too, Chandler, really fast. A troubled, I guess, player heading to a system like Las Vegas that is notorious at this point for seeing troubled players just spiral out of control, whether it's Chandler Jones, Henry Ruggs, the list goes on of just disasters that have happened. Antonio Brown. It just goes on and on and on. And placing a player like Jack Jones in there, sure, he's a former Patriot because, of course, he ends up there, like you said. But is this really a good spot for the corner to try and recover? Or do you think it's maybe best that the Pats kind of just let him move on from his personal issues?
So I'm going to actually argue that yes, this is a good place for him. And it feels weird to say, but everything that we've seen from their locker room since McDaniels has been fired has been excellent. They're smoking cigars together. They're 2-0. Let's talk about that. They look good. The vibes are high. This is the Raiders cycle over the past 6 years. They'll have a coach. They'll start off thinking, "Oh, this is the guy," and then everyone starts to hate him. He gets fired. They have an interim come in. Everyone loves the interim. They're not going to hire the interim as the head coach. They're going to repeat the cycle. We saw this with Rich Bisaccia, who was the special teams coordinator, who then became the interim head coach, who then got fired or didn't get extended again, and is since, I believe he's still with the Packers as their special teams coordinator. But we're seeing that now with their new head coach, whose name is
Antonio Pierce.
Antonio Pierce. I was going to say Antonio Gibson, and I was like, that's the running back for the Commanders. Antonio Pierce, yes. And we're seeing that he has a culture there that is proving to be really effective. He's having all the practice squad players on the sidelines during the games, which is rare across the league and wasn't the case under McDaniels. We're seeing a very happy group of players right now, and maybe that's exactly what Jack Jones needs, a little bit less control on his life, kind of like, and I'm not comparing these players at all, kind of like what Dennis Rodman got when he was in Chicago. Maybe you just need somebody to let you be you, and that will solve your issues. Maybe, maybe not, but maybe. And actually, before another thing, Antonio Pierce was actually Jack Jones's coach in college and in high school.
That's what I was just about to bring up, actually.
Yes.
So possibly that connection between Pierce and Jones going all the way back. I'm reading now on the Raiders website. He was 13 when he was first introduced to Coach Pierce. Apparently, he was involved in the recruiting process that ended up getting Jones to play in high school and then furthermore in college. And he stuck with him, coaching with him in college.
This is the second time he's gone from one program to another. He was at, was he at Florida or Florida State before he transferred to Arizona State? I think he was at Florida, and then he transferred to Arizona State, which is where Antonio Pierce was.
Yeah, and regardless, hopefully that, I guess, circumstance for Jack Jones will help him mend. We've seen that he's a talented quarterback, so it's kind of sad that we had to let him go, but at the same time, in a dysfunctional locker room like the Patriots have right now, it's not best, I guess, to have those kind of troubled players around. We can't really dedicate the energy to kind of fixing him at this point.
USC. It wasn't Florida at all. It was USC.
Okay.
USC, then to Arizona State, which is where Antonio Pierce was.
Well, regardless of Jack Jones being released for his personal issues, another player involved in that whole scandal a couple weeks ago at the hotel with curfew was J.C. Jackson, who we brought over in a trade from the LA Chargers earlier in the season. Obviously, being a former Patriot, he settled back into the system pretty effectively, but his personal issues have kept him off the field, Chandler. He did not take the trip to Germany last week with the Patriots to play against the Colts. Apparently, it was surrounding personal issues. The team wanted him to take a step away from the team, reset, and he ended up coming back. This past Wednesday, Mike Reese reported that J.C. Jackson was back at practice. What do you think this means for the, I guess, troubled corner that's still on our team?
It had better mean that he plays, because he's a talented player when he's on the field, and we're going to need him, especially we're going to need him when it's a revenge game against the Chargers in a couple weeks. That is going to be a big game for him personally, I assume, and he's frankly our best corner, and it's
Sadly.
him, and it's basically nobody else. So we really need him to come back. Shaun Wade, Miles Bryant, my two favorite people in football. We need them to come back. We need him to come back so that we see less of them, if at all possible.
Yeah, and we'll get into that game against the Chargers in a little bit, Chandler, when we look ahead at the Patriots schedule. But in their preview for the rest of the season, I have three major questions that are going to kind of sum up a lot of the points that we've talked about in the past couple weeks. First off, a subject that I feel like we've been nonstop about. This is kind of what caused our last episode to go almost an hour. Will Bill Belichick stay the coach of the New England Patriots for the rest of the 2023 NFL season?
To be succinct, no. Oh, for the rest of the season, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, he will for the rest of the
I was
season.
like, whoa.
No, yes. Sorry, for the rest of the season, yes, he will.
Whoa, Chandler.
Yeah, no. If they were going to have fired him, they would have done it already because they would have wanted to give Gerard Mayo the bye week to then let him have an audition to be the full-time head coach. He's not going to get fired this season.
Well, I guess to lead off that, would you say after this year he's done?
Yes, absolutely. I
All right.
think that he
Well,
will end up. I'm really coming around to it. I think it's officially going to happen. He's going to be the Washington Commanders head coach next year, and we're going to get a pick for him.
to touch on it lightly, the rumor also, if he was to leave New England, would be the Chargers. That's what some inside sources at Los Angeles are saying, because
Really?
apparently Bill Belichick, I mean, obviously they feel like they're a coach away from winning. They have a
Which
very
they are. I
talented,
agree.
they have a really talented quarterback, obviously, in Justin Herbert. And one of the sources' main points was that Bill Belichick loves the California area.
That's stupid.
So
That's a stupid point.
yeah. So that for that exact reason, I was like, well, maybe before because you're a source, but now you're just talking out of your ass. So no. But
Yep.
anyway, I guess it's a possibility. And obviously the Commanders have been a possibility for a couple weeks now. But as I would answer this question, I would say yes, he stays the coach for the rest of the season. And beyond that, I'm not saying yes or no. I'm really in a place of like, I have no idea what's going to happen. And I think partially that depends, and I've said this before, on the conversation they have together after the season regarding his position as general manager. Because if Bill Belichick is given solely a coaching job in New England, I think we can possibly get back to a point of success with him in charge if he decides to hold out for a couple more years. If he does not, then, that's the point of confliction that would lead to him leaving, in my opinion. So it all depends on that offseason conversation regarding the draft, what draft pick we end up getting, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And I guess his decisions going forward with all the money that the Pats are going to have this offseason. So that I think is my major key to determining whether or not he stays with New England after this season. But another kind of player, or I guess person on this team who is a player that's been in question for the upcoming games of the season has been Mac Jones. My question for you, Chandler, and I'll start with a quote. Do you think Mac Jones will be the quarterback for the rest of this season? And to preview that, Dietrich Wise Jr. said to WEEI earlier this week, he said, quote, "We've been going to war with Mac, so that's the guy I always hang my hat on. If coach thinks otherwise, that's the guy we'll rally around." Obviously, and I just want to say this really fast because I just remembered I didn't have it on the rundown. The rumor this week is that about 80% of the locker room are out on Mac Jones. They've turned their back on him. So although Wise has been, I guess, supportive in Mac in some sense by saying, we go to war with this guy, he and it seems most of the locker room are ready to move on if Coach Belichick kind of gives the okay. What do you think about Mac Jones?
The big if, and I don't think that he is going to be taken away as the starting quarterback this season for better or for worse, because frankly, the job of the staff, and they're going to maintain this, is they still want to win every week, and he gives us the best chance to win. Zappy stinks. Cunningham would be fun for us, but I don't know. He's extremely unproven. I'd like to see him just be elevated to the backup quarterback, and then in a game that Max stinks, pull him, then put Cunningham and just let him run the offense a little bit. But I really dislike when people say, "Oh, let's just trade all our good players away and let's just lose." Because if you think about it, you're thinking about 53 players' jobs, and then you're thinking about all the staff's jobs. They're the only metric for success for a coach or a player is winning. They would not actively want to lose so they could get Caleb Williams. They don't care about Caleb Williams unless he's in their building. There's no reason to put in a lesser quarterback for the purpose of losing, and Mac Jones is the best quarterback on the roster.
Yeah, and I'd say, Chandler, that it'd be interesting to see guys like Cunningham come into the lineup. But for the most part, I'm on the same boat as you. I think Mac Jones is going to remain the starter of this team for the remainder of the season. The only circumstance I see him not starting, and I wouldn't be opposed to this at all, is if we give the nod to Malik Cunningham for one game, probably so he gets like a full preparation in terms of time to actually get a system around him before the game so he's not just thrown into the wolves in a brutal loss that would come in the other circumstance that he plays. But regardless, probably the most likely fashion is what you said. Jones stays the starter, and maybe we see guys like Cunningham come in. But I'm really going to be upset if we really decide to shift Bailey Zappi into this lineup one more time this season.
Agreed.
The fact that this dude was even talking about potential behind starting after the game against the Colts and trying to push a little bit of blame off about that disastrous last play is ridiculous. At least Mac, although he's played horrible and at the points he's played horrible, at least he's been able to take accountability.
Yeah.
Zappy, a little bit iffy in that department, and he sucks. So I just don't like him.
It's a good point.
But regardless, I'd love to see Cunningham get a shift in, especially if it's like week 16.
I think that it's very possible that we see him in that Jets game at the end of the season in a similar way to how the Commanders did with Sam Howell last year. They brought him in for the last game. He threw for like 400 plus yards and became their quarterback for this year. That was his audition.
I'd love to do something like that.
We've seen that historically happen a couple times also. Patrick Mahomes did that when he was before they got into the playoffs, when they still had Alex Smith. Real throwback. I think it's Rob Johnson, the guy that took over for Flutie. Silly because they gave him one game and then they're like, oh, by the way, you're going to start in the playoffs also. And they lost because Flutie was a weapon and they didn't have Flutie anymore. So, whatever. I'll get off my soapbox.
Classic Doug Flutie supporter here in Chandler Betts.
After,
I can't believe that hasn't come up on the pod yet. Your love.
I was about to be like, yeah, everybody talks about like how often do you think of the Roman Empire? Me personally, I think of the Roman Empire at least once a day. I took Latin in high school. I see it all the time. But I think about Doug Flutie just as much.
Wow. Shout out to you. I'm not thinking about the Roman Empire, bro. I'm thinking about ancient Greece because we are the establishment of society. But regardless, establish the quarterback position in New England is more important in the future. So Mac Jones, whether or not he stays the starter, I pray to God that it just isn't any more of a disaster than we've already seen. But
let's talk about establishing ourselves as the worst team in football this year with the record.
There we go, Chandler. We're on fire now with the transitions. Let's move into our record. We're going to travel through the rest of the Patriots season. We did this at one point, actually, earlier in the year. I forget it. I think it was before the Dolphins game because if it was like a best case and worst case scenario, considering if we beat the Dolphins, we were on a rampage. That's what we thought. That did not happen. But regardless, this will be fun. Let's kind of go through the Patriots schedule for the rest of the year following this week's bye week. And let's see where we end up.
Chandler, I'd love for you to go first on this one, actually. I'm curious.
Well, here's what we'll do. Just so it's not a whole like back and forth, we'll bring up the game and then we'll both decide on the game right there.
Oh, sure.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, of course.
Let's go for it. So coming out of this week, we got the Giants, 1:00, the Battle of Trash.
Yeah, these are the two lowest.
Oh, did you want me to start? I'm sorry.
Go for it. Yeah. I want you to run through all these.
I think we're
you, me.
Yeah. I'll start. So I need to think about it now. I guess I'm going to pick the Giants, even though out of all these games, I think the Patriots could win this one. And I really hope they don't. But
yeah,
I'm
picking us. I think that
damn it, Chandler. No.
Tommy DeVito is their quarterback. He was an undrafted free agent and not even a good one at that.
You know what? I changed my mind from before. Maybe we should start Zabby this week.
Yeah, bring him in.
Maybe we should start Zabby. Throw him in there.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go bring Joe Burrow in to start for the game.
This game is too much of like displayed on a silver platter for Mac Jones if he was able to go in this circumstance. But at the same time, every time he's had a silver platter presented in front of him, it's like he just whacks it out of the air and just destroys it. So maybe that's what we're looking for. But regardless, I guess I'm going to pick Giants by -0.5.
Whoever loses this game, in my opinion, gets the first overall pick.
Man, I really hope we lose. That's going to be the only game I really root to lose for this year. Regardless, after that, we got Chargers versus Patriots. Who are you picking?
Give me the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm going the Chargers too. And this was a game all year long. I was very much on the boat of this is a game the Patriots can win. They can win.
I don't know
game.
why you think the Chargers stink.
They were not up to standard that at least I had them at going into the year. But regardless, at this point, we suck. So we're losing.
I will say, out of the teams that are actually good at football, this is the team that we could beat because the Chargers happen to just lose random games for bad clock management and bad player management. This is the game we could win. I really do expect Justin Herbert to throw for 440 yards and 5 touchdowns on our heads, though.
Yeah, and another thing really quick before we move on to the next game, Pats always have the Chargers numbers because of Bill Belichick. At least that's my take. Belichick just can read the Chargers like a book and shut them down. But regardless, I think Herbert is going to have revenge on J.C. Jackson and throw his way every single time and burn him. So that'll be a fun watch. Patriots versus Steelers Sunday night. Oh, is this
Sunday night football? I know.
Is it? No, I think it's Thursday night football.
Thursday night football.
Yeah, Thursday night football.
Consistently has been the worst game of the week, regardless of who the teams are. Thursday night football is always the worst, and this is no different. The Steelers are going to win, but it's not going to be pretty because while I'm going to say this about another team later, they aren't good. They might make the playoffs. They still stink, though. They're going to beat us.
Yeah, we're losing that game badly. We're not badly. It'll probably be like 20-0.
Yeah, not badly.
Probably be some
nothing, not badly, right?
Well, bro, compared to what else we've had this season, that's not that bad.
I mean, it could be 40-0, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but the Steelers are just not good enough to put up 40 points. They're gonna put up 20, and they're gonna Mac Jones is gonna get sacked about 12 times. Regardless,
that'll might break the single sack record.
Another fun watch coming up here. Another fun watch that I'll get to witness in person. Monday Night Football against the Chiefs. All I can say, Chandler, is that my brother and I, a shout out to this random patron at Jimmy's. I work at Jimmy's Steerhouse in Arlington.
Oh, yeah.
This customer, I'm a waiter. He gave me these Patriots tickets just randomly. So shout out to him. But sadly, this game is probably going to be so empty because it's the Chiefs that we're playing that my brother and I might be able to just move up far in this game. So at least we'll be able to watch the Patriots lose from up close, hopefully. But I'm picking us to lose easily. 60-0.
Yeah, no free promos, but shout out Jimmy's. Jimmy's has a great steak. I'm a big fan of Jimmy's, even before you started working there.
There you go. See, you and I are the original supporters of this restaurant.
We are, yeah, I know.
None of our generation likes it except us. So
it's us and the town Congress people of Arlington. That's literally it.
We're the young age townies, Chandler. That's you and I.
Hey, born in the wrong generation right now. But yeah, born in the wrong generation if we want to see the Patriots play decent football because this team stinks and the Chiefs are going to put I'm not going to say 60-0. I'm going to say it's going to be a 38-13 loss.
Who gets the touchdown?
The defense.
Great. Another great watch. Next up, Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, everyone. Patriots versus Broncos at Mile High. We're done. We're done.
Not even a prediction at this point. We're done.
At this point of the season, that it's going to be bad news.
Yeah, on the 12th day of Christmas, Bill Belichick gave to me a massive migraine. It's gonna be such a bad game.
I'm gonna be going to sleep at 11:15 on Christmas Eve. Like, damn, I could have just been asleep right now to wake up tomorrow morning on Christmas and enjoy my Christmas morning. But nope, I'm watching the Patriots lose in Mile High Stadium to Russell Wilson and Sean Payton.
Yeah, unless Santa's out dropping dimes, giving gifts in the pocket for the Patriots, I do anticipate a pretty sizable loss in this game as well.
This is the puns are getting out of hand.
Hey, we've descended into madness at this point. We have to.
New Year's Eve, Chandler, Patriots versus Bills. Will they get an upset like they got early in the season? I say no.
Yeah, the last time the ball dropped in Buffalo was when Cam Newton fumbled the ball and we lost to the Bills. But no, this team stinks. Again, I say this every week. I don't know.
What a memory that was, that Cam Newton game. You just reminded me of that.
Yeah, we're going to.
What a sad moment in Patriots history that was. That makes me think about the whole 2020 season and how bad I thought it was for so long. But at the same time, I thought that was as bad as it was going to get. But no, just 2 years later, 3 years later, we're in the gutter. This is horrible.
This is how the poor's live. This is how the commoners live. Now. Gosh, now we are the worst team in football. Maybe the second worst team in football other than the Giants. But yeah, this is going to not be a close game. This is going to be the game that the Bills are like, we might not make the playoffs if we don't win this game. Let's win by 50. And then they're going to make the playoffs. They'll be fine in the long run. They're going to win.
Yeah, it's going to be the Pats versus Jags of 2021. the statement game, and then it may lead to the Bills not going far because they are indeed
Oh,
frauds. But regardless, Pat's L.
yep,
Last game of the season, Jets versus Patriots, January 7th. To be determined is the time slot. Let's throw this one in prime time. It'll look great. Uh,
agreed.
regardless,
Well,
Patriots are losing.
well,
And we might even be against Aaron Rodgers at this
I was
point.
gonna say it actually might put it in a not a prime time slot, but they might put it on the Saturday because they tend to do that. They might put it in the Saturday prime time slot if there really aren't any good games because Rodgers is going to be back. He's defying science and he says he's going to be back by early to mid December. I can't doubt him at this point because he is showing that he has made some kind of deal with the devil and he can accelerate all metrics of science before. So yeah, Rodgers is going to. Oh my God! Wow, Aaron Rodgers is going to give Bill Belichick his last ever loss as a New England Patriot. Wow. Yeah.
That'd be what a great turn on the season, Chandler.
Oh wow! That just clicked in my head right now. You know, it's very poetic.
And regardless,
The team. Oh, let me be real. Let me spit some game here. The team for which Bill Belichick turned down is for the Patriots is going to give him his last ever loss. That's
oh,
game, isn't it? That's game there.
that's poetry in motion.
Yeah, put me on.
Regardless, I guess off these final predictions, I have the Pats going 0-7. That would lead them to a record of 2-15. You have them going 1-6.
Yeah.
That would lead them to a record of 3-14. Regardless of how the draft standings are right now, that would most likely put the Patriots in top 3 pick category.
Yes,
I could
I would
argue.
hope so.
I would hope so too, but with our luck, maybe not. Regardless, this is how the pick standings look right now. The first overall pick is going to the Carolina Panthers, who are obviously giving that to the Chicago Bears. The Panthers are currently 1-8. Next up, New York Giants with the second overall pick in the draft. They're 2-8. Then the Patriots are slotted in at number 3 overall with a record of 2-8 as well. Arizona at 4, they're 2-8. And the 5th overall pick goes to the Chicago Bears, who had the first overall pick last year and traded away,
They're
which is
done.
thus why the Carolina Panthers are giving up their pick this year. But the Bears are slotted in at number 5 with a record of 3-7 on the season. So we're not going to do as detailed of a look at the schedule for each of these 4 teams, Chandler, but I
Yeah.
kind of want to power through who each of them are playing and then our predicted record out of 7, I guess, for their last 7 games of the
Basically,
season.
do we think they're going to get more than 2 wins or 2 or more
Yes.
wins?
So starting with the Panthers, they actually have 8 games to go because
Yep,
they've had a bye week already. They have the Cowboys, Titans, Buccaneers, Saints, Falcons, Packers, Jaguars, Bucks again.
They might not win another game.
That's sad.
They stink. Bryce
Maybe,
Young, I'm not saying
maybe,
he
maybe the
stinks.
Titans. Maybe the
I mean,
Titans.
they're a team that could fluke their way to any win because their defense isn't that bad. They could fluke their way to any win in a similar way to kind of how we can, but they really aren't good. They have
So you
more
gotta wait.
weapons.
You gotta weigh the Falcons game too, Chandler. Their defense is not good.
It's true. The Falcons let up a lot of touchdowns to quarterbacks also. So maybe that's Bryce Young's get back game.
Mm-hmm. But regardless, I'd peak them at 2-5, or I guess 2-6 in this case.
Yeah, so they'll be fighting with us for that those top picks there.
So not a good outlook for the Patriots.
And
Go
by they, of
Panthers.
course, we mean the Bears.
Oh, but yeah, it would be the Bears pick. So I guess that would lead to another
Stupid. Imagine trading
circumstance.
DJ Moore and your first round pick when you don't expect to be very good for so silly, so silly.
And they picked the wrong guy, Chandler, in your opinion, and that you were right.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud balling out.
Yep.
Regardless, New York Giants. I'm saying regardless a lot. I just noticed.
Hey,
Regardless, here are the New York Giants.
Yeah.
Obviously, their next game comes against the Pats. Then they play the Packers, the Saints, Eagles, Rams, Eagles. Wow.
That's also maybe not another win.
Yeah. And this one I can confident more. Oh, I'm sorry. They play the Commanders.
That could be a win.
Hmm.
Sam Howell could throw you 3 picks. He's done it before.
Maybe, but he didn't against the Patriots.
It's true, and we'll see.
And our defense is probably better.
He's done it against a worse team than our defense, though. I forget who, but
That's
he
true.
3 picks. Um,
But yeah, this is not a good outlook for the Pats, I guess, from our perspective in terms of the tough schedule that the Giants have. Could
that's
you
why I
say
said
maybe
whoever
they squeak one
wins
out
that
against
game will
the Packers?
Hmm?
Maybe they squeak one out against the
Oh yeah, the
Packers?
Packers also do stink. That's another thing. Jordan Love isn't very good.
Yeah. So maybe. I
Maybe
guess maybe one win is the max. Or no, you know
two.
what? Two. Because
It could
they
be
could have a
us.
win against us.
Yeah, that's why I said whoever loses that game has a really good chance of the first overall pick.
So it's gonna be Tankathon Sunday next or the following
For
Sunday.
those
It's
for
gonna be
those
a
of you guys who
huge
watch
week.
on the YouTube, again, no free ads, but for those of you who watch Urinating Tree on YouTube, the football page,
Yeah.
the fourth page, it's a tank bowl.
Gotta love the Tank Bowl. First time Patriots are participating in probably our
Yeah,
entire lifetime. So
gosh, I remember
interesting
all
stuff.
back to that game.
Cardinals are up next, Chandler. Right now they have the 4th overall pick in the draft. This is interesting because although their record has been terrible, they're 2-8 right now. They just got Kyler Murray back, and he's
Yep.
looking great.
They also
So,
just got James Conner back.
yes, that's another big point. Their upcoming schedule, they play the Texans. Yes, Texans, Rams, Steelers, 49ers, Bears, Eagles, Seahawks. That Bears game on Christmas Eve might be huge.
I think that's 3 wins for them.
Yeah,
Being the
I think they
Rams,
could beat. I
being the
think they could beat the
Steelers, and beating the
Rams.
Bears.
Yeah, Rams, Texans, Bears.
Well, I don't know if they beat the Texans. The Texans are good.
Who are you saying? The Steelers?
Steelers, yeah.
That's fair. Okay,
Texans,
so
CJ
yeah,
Stroud.
I'd say they could get 3 wins, comfortably get 3 wins.
I mean, they could get 5 wins. Kyler Murray is a game changer player. He could win. He could realistically win them any of those games.
And I was really out on Kyler Chandler before
I
he
was
came
not. I
back.
said that hey, if they
You've been
really
on
think he
Kyler's
can
ship for
spring
a
them,
long time.
you know. Now we have. I'm getting my Doug Flutie references in now. Kyler Murray plays a lot like a certain number 22 for Boston College back in the day.
Yep. And I guess, at least from the Patriots' perspective, we're cheering for Kyler. Go, Kyler Murray.
Go
Please
Kyler.
get some
Yes.
wins because as a Pats fan, we need them. But
Yep.
yeah, regardless, 3 wins, that would prop Arizona to 5-12, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 5-12. So that would be a pretty good outlook for New England in terms that they might go 2-17. And at their peak, at least what we can perceive, their peak right now is 3-16.
Yep.
Is that wrong?
No, it's
Yes,
not
that's
3 and
very
16,
wrong.
3 and 14.
Yeah, 3-14. What am I doing? Last but not least, Chicago Bears, who not only possess the Panthers pick in this draft, but they have one of their own, and they're already looking to be in the number 1 overall pick sweepstakes. Obviously, they're the furthest out, being 3-7 right now, but they still have a chance. The rest of their season looks like this. They play the Lions, Vikings, Lions again, Browns, Cardinals, Falcons, Packers. What do you think?
I think that's 2 wins for them. Justin Fields is coming back this week. They have the Browns, who no longer have Deshaun for the rest of the season, as DTR Dorian Thompson Robinson, whatever his name is starting. 5th-round pick out of UCLA. He was good in UCLA. He was very bad in the one game that he played thus far in the season. So I think that they might be dead. So I think the Bears will get 2 wins, push them out of the top 5, pretty much solidifying us as definitely top 3, maybe even 2 or 1.
Yeah, I think they could beat the Browns, like you said. I'd also consider taking them over the Falcons, maybe even the Packers. So there's potential there for 3 wins. In that case, they'd be 6-12. Nope, 6-11.
Yep.
Nope, 6-12.
Nope, 6 and 11.
6-11. Oh my god, this is bad.
Myself, gosh.
Math is not my strong suit anymore, as I have not taken it since high school. But regardless, the Patriots have a big couple of weeks ahead of them, and surprisingly, for the first time in team history, they're looking to lose, and their fan base is searching for losses, which just illustrates how much of an outstanding season this has been in terms of just boldness standing out from the constant victories over the entire Patriots tenure since we've been alive. So Obviously a tough pill to swallow, but if you can lose enough games to get yourself a high pick, Chandler, you may have a chance at a guy like Drake May, who
Oh
is
yeah,
your
you
rookie
will.
of the week, your draft prospect insight. Take it away.
All right. So Drake May is the quarterback for the North Carolina Tar Heels this year. Last year, he took over from Sam Howell. Sam Howell left for the league. He took over 2022 last season, where he won the ACC Rookie of the Year and the ACC Player of the Year because he's just like that. Off the top of my head, I believe he had 4,300 yards, 35 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions last year. And he's keeping up that pace right now. He's been playing excellently. He is 6'5", 220, and he can move too. He is quick. He's probably going to run a 4.6, maybe a 4.7, which is around a little bit faster than what Mac ran, for reference. He's elusive. Something that I really noticed, he has one of the, if not the best pump fakes I've ever seen. I don't know how, but every single time he gets a player, he'll pump, and then he'll just throw a tight window dime. Something that's very impressive about him. There are a lot of things really impressive about him, but the most is that I couldn't really find a significant flaw in his game. The biggest I would say, and this is kind of a reach, is a ball security question, because he has games where he throws 2 picks, but then he'll also match that with 2 touchdowns and 330 yards. So it's not like it's doesn't necessarily a negative, especially because they give him all of the keys to the offense. Something that we really see is he'll do a sight adjustment. He will change the play as he goes. He'll take it from under center. He'll take it from shotgun. There was one really impressive play. He has a whole slew of impressive plays. But there was one where he saw there was going to be a green blitz, which is a corner blitz. He just looked over, immediately turns, throws it over him, free 8 yards. And that was originally, the announcers were saying that it was originally going to be a run play. So the freedom and the trust to be able to change that play speaks volumes to who he is. And he's learning from the best too. I said last week, his quarterback's coach at UNC, Clyde Christensen. That name may mean something to you because he was the quarterback's coach in Indianapolis for Peyton Manning and for Andrew Luck. And he was also the quarterback's coach in Tampa for Jameis Winston and Tom Brady. And he has been quoted to saying that Drake May is a generational talent. He's humble, he's extremely athletic, and he has got the arm to make any throw. He has a real plus arm. He has the brain. He has the ability. He's great at rolling out to the left and keeping an awareness of his arm to be able to throw at all kinds of angles. He's fine making throws off platform. He's fine making them while he's moving. And again, a huge thing that I look for in quarterbacks is he doesn't have a great offensive line, and he has probably the best pocket awareness in this draft right here. I think that this is a slam dunk pick. A lot of people are placing him above Caleb Williams at this point. I haven't done a full dive on Caleb Williams yet, so I can't really say that. I think the tie still goes to the runner for me with Caleb. But Drake May is a generational talent. I really believe that. If he was in New England next year, I'd get a jersey like that.
Well, you pick him to go second overall, Chandler, as you just said. One question before we get into your pro comparison that I have. The last quarterback that I guess you've talked about in a similar stance, and you've been a huge hit on a lot of the draft prospects that you've had, but one that comes to mind that reminds me a little bit of the way you're describing Drake May is Zach Wilson.
Yes.
And obviously we've seen how things have panned out with a guy like Zach. What would you say in terms of the similarities that people may draw between these two players?
I'll actually start by talking about a difference between them. Zach Wilson had one of, if not the best offensive lines in college football when he was there. He had a huge slew of 6'6" plus players in front of him that were saving him from being able to do all of the creativity that he did. Now, I'm not saying that I'm walking back my analysis of him as a player, because I do still think that there is somebody in there. That somebody isn't necessarily an elite NFL starting quarterback, but he has the room to still realize some kind of potential. And I think that the general read that I had was still not bad. It was a miss in terms of player management, maybe a miss in terms of the person itself, which we couldn't gather. But some similarities: arm angles, creativity, But he does a lot of things better. Drake May does a lot of things better. You can tell that he's so smart that he will be able to find the middle of zones. He's able to give the ball. He sees right away, this is going to be man. I'm throwing this as a one-on-one ball. My guy's going to have it. Your guy won't.
So would you say would you
yeah.
say the one kind of like differentiating aspect to say that Drake May isn't another Zach Wilson? What would you say that is?
His ability to manipulate the defense. That's what I would put it as. That goes to the pump fakes. Something that we've really seen is his ability to run the RPO, which is super important in the modern NFL and is really important in a Bill O'Brien offense. As I said last week, Bill O'Brien is 10th in RPOs called.
Yep.
For in all across the league, which is pretty good. He's trying to revolutionize his offense, which I enjoy. And Drake May is well accustomed to do all the things that a modern NFL quarterback has to. And yeah, talk to me about whatever you got before my player comparison.
Yeah, that's it. Well, who's your player comparison?
Okay, so I've seen a lot of player comparisons. He is huge. Let's mention that again. 6'5", 220. That is massive. He is a big body. I've seen comparisons ranging from a low comparison being Blake Bortles, which isn't good, but isn't really that bad. Like Blake Bortles was still a quarterback that, honestly, in retrospect, probably should have been a Super Bowl quarterback. They probably should have beat the Patriots that year.
Yeah.
I've seen Dante Culpepper. It's a good one. Carson Palmer. Justin Herbert is another one that makes a lot of sense to me. The one that I'm going to go with, and I was contemplating whether or not I wanted to come up with this one or just come up with someone else. I'm just going to say it. My comparison is Andrew Luck. I think that this is, and Nick, you know how much I love Andrew Luck as a player. I think that he was one of the, if
That's
not
huge.
Most, I think that he was maybe the most wasted talent in the history of the NFL, maybe. Andrew Luck very easily could have been a top 5, top 7, I'll say top 7 quarterback of all time if he didn't get killed. And we see that Drake May, he has the same kind of bravado that Andrew Luck does, that he is so okay getting lit up. There are a lot of plays where Drake May will just start sliding to the left, and he's like, I know I'm going to get lit up here, but I'm going to deliver this ball, and then I'm going to get lit up. That's something that we see in a Matt Stafford. That's something that we see in Andrew Luck. And that's something that we see a lot in Drake May. As I'm saying that, the one other flaw that's very technical, this won't mean a lot to most people, but a flaw that I've seen that I haven't really seen anyone talk about is he has a real tendency to float to the left when he is in the pocket. He does it, and it's worked thus far, probably because his left tackle is strong, but his right tackle isn't strong. But it's a little bit worrying to me when a team could just throw a TJ Watt on his left side and say, I dare you to float to the left. I dare you to float into him. What's going to happen at that point? I think he'll be fine because he just needs to realize that. And he has the brain. He's had the quarterback coaching, and he will hopefully continue to have the quarterback coaching to develop that. But that's just something to think about. Player comparison, though, I really think the sky is the limit for Drake May, and I'm going to put Andrew Luck as my player comp.
Really interesting player as you talk about him, Chandler, and I appreciate your insight in terms of kind of debunking that at least comparison that I had with a guy like Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
And in your assumption with comparing him to a guy like Andrew Luck, I trust that he has high hopes in the future for any team that ends up selecting him. Obviously, from a Patriots fan perspective, everybody hopes the New England Patriots get enough losses to have a chance at a guy like not Andrew Luck, Drake May.
Or Andrew Luck must come back.
Or Andrew Luck Jr. maybe. But regardless, that all starts with their game next week against the New York Giants. Obviously, we will not have an episode this upcoming Monday because there's no game to recap, but you will see us not on Thanksgiving Thursday, but on Black Friday for a full preview episode of the Patriots versus Giants game. But until then, alongside Chandler Betts, my name is Nick Antonakas. We'll see you back here in just a few days, or I guess over a week. Have a nice Thanksgiving, everybody. Have a nice Thanksgiving, everybody.